Okay, here we go. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm Joe. I'm going to be mediating this panel. I am actually the co-founder of Campfire, and with me, to my right, we've got Joe Burford, who is the head of creators at TikTok. We've got my co-founder, Alex. I drew the short straw, which is why I'm reading the cards. And we also have Max, and Max is the founder of the leading influencer measurement solution, which is This That. We've got a few questions we're going to run through. If there's questions at the end, shout them out, or we can answer them when we step off the stage afterwards. So, let's get started. So, let's start by reflecting on the changes to the landscape with a community-first approach, using creators and social-first in their thinking. Walk, early in the year, reported social has overtaken paid search to become the world's largest channel by ad spend. And it's evident that brands leading into influencers are performing particularly well in this space. And so the first question I want to ask is, why is influencer going mainstream? And what can we learn from that to stop failing at ads?
Hello, everyone. Fuck me, that's very loud. Wow. Hi. I'll put that away a little bit. Why is influencer marketing growing so quick? Why is it going mainstream? The short answer is influencers drive relevancy. I'm going to try and break the answer down into two parts. One, I'll give you guys a bit of a story, and then one, I'll talk about data. So that's very much a data company. If I've got authority to talk into anything, it's about data, and I'll go into that in a second. Starting off with the story, if you think about creators, if you think about influencers, you think about them in the lens of community, they very much are at the heart of culture. They are the trendsetters. They are the voice for their community. So they obviously would drive relevancy. Now, why is relevancy important, and why does relevancy make sense in this question, and why am I going to use data for that? Bit of context, This That, we are a measurement solution in the influencer marketing landscape. The way in which we measure the effectiveness of campaigns is through a methodology known as brand lift. Brand lift is a survey-based methodology where you survey two groups, one that have seen the campaign and one that have not seen the campaign. You very much hope that those that have seen the campaign are more aware, more likely to feel something, more likely to recommend the product or have certain perceptions, or think that an ad or a product is relevant to them. The beauty of this is that it's full funnel measurement, and it's also measurement that's used across all the different ad platforms. So you can compare the results of the impact of an influencer to TV or social. So it gives us an apples-to-apples measurement tool to be able to answer this question. Something that's useful about our data is that the respondents answer every single question within the survey, which gives us the ability to also then filter those results. We can cut the data by how they've answered other questions in the data. Why is that powerful? It allows us uniquely to be able to get full funnel attribution. So we know how important is awareness, how important is it to anchor certain associations, how important is it to drive perceptions? And in these analyses, now having collected multiple millions of opinions, we're in a position to be able to say, what is the most important metric at driving success in marketing? And the most important metric is relevancy. The correlation between relevancy and driving all the bottom funnel metrics is a huge outlier across the full funnel. It is more than double as impactful than awareness, ad recall, recall of a specific message. It's more impactful than curiosity or any of the other metrics. Relevancy is the most important metric, and that is the heart of influencers. So that's why they have made such a big boom and have become mainstream.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. We're saying relevancy is the most important metric to track. That makes a lot of sense, obviously. So me and Alex, when we've been sort of working with influencers, how do we drive more relevance? We actually do this thing called roundtables. We'll get a load of famous influencers, we'll sit them down, and we'll ask them, what are the things that are really great about working with brands? What could be better? What are the bits that piss you off? and we try and collect all this information so we know, as an agency, how to work better with brands. And one of the key things that they mention is that the gap between what brands want to say and what consumers go on their phones to go and watch is very different. Like, the gap is getting bigger. And it is about the shortening of that gap is how you drive relevance, I guess. So my next question is, in your opinion, Alex, how do you drive more relevancy?
So I think you can do this in 2 stages. If you're a brand that feels like you're really, really far behind in terms of driving relevancy on social, the first thing that you can do is just start looking at the kinds of content that creators or influencers are producing that is in your category and start emulating that a little bit. And you see that in brands like Flixbus or Ryanair or Duolingo. They've probably come up a million times today. And you've seen them sort of playing into the meme culture, style content that TikTok and Instagram Reels is famous for. But you might be a brand that thinks, I can't do that type of content, that's not for me. Well, I would encourage you to look at creators like Wisdom K, who I can't describe his content in words, you need to look at him, but he creates content around high fashion that is perfect for brands like Louis Vuitton, for example, who could absolutely start creating that style of content tomorrow if they wanted to. So once you've started to create the type of content that is native to the platforms that you want to advertise on and sort of mimicking influencers in that way, the next stage will be to look at trends. And these are very fast moving, and so if you're an influencer or if you're a smaller brand, you've got an advantage because you don't have a lot of layers of red tape that you need to get through. But if any of you here work for a really big brand and they're like, we need to get on more trends, we need to start doing the kinds of things that we're seeing on TikTok and Instagram, you know what it might be like to try and get a trending piece of content signed off. Like, you'll see something on TikTok, take it to your social media manager or your marketing manager, say, I want to do this, come up with a brief and a concept, find an influencer you might want to work with, maybe there's some amends, they come back with things that they want to change, and by the time you've put it out, it's not a trend anymore, it's not cool anymore. So this can be a real issue and blocker for bigger brands to stay relevant on these fast-moving platforms. So we saw an opportunity to design a solution for this, and I do have a slide to show you what it roughly looks like. So we work with bigger brands like the L'Oreal Group, Unilever, who underneath is Vaseline, things like that, obviously. And we've built a dashboard of all of the category relevant trends that they would want to pay attention to. So the way that this works is we'll look at trends in their specific niche or their specific category, track their growth rate over time and their growth rate relative to one another. And by doing so, we can see which trends are going to break out in the future. So the way that we can do that is that we've mapped so many trends over time that we've been able to train a machine learning algorithm. You can call it AI if you like, but that's probably a buzzword for the day. But we've trained a machine learning algorithm to be able to predict the behavior of that trend in the future. So that means that if, for example, I can't read what the top one is, but it says hot, if we spot a trend that is hot, we're able to send what we've called a nudge out to our clients, which contains context around the trend, what you should do about it, so the product you can integrate into that trend, and then how we as Campfire can execute against that trend. And by doing that, they can react really, really quickly to trends, but still have a 2 to 3 week window of time to go through all of the approvals that you might need to go through. So that's a really useful tool that brands have been using. But the reason that you might want to use trends to stay relevant is it has effects like increasing your 6-second view-through rate by 250%, or increasing the rate at which your ads are converting people into customers. So there is a lot of ways that you can harness trends to your advantage. And I suppose, just to bring it back to the context of this conversation, it can be a really good way to drive relevance in your online community.
Okay, so we're saying relevance is a key metric. We're saying that you want to look at trends if you want to drive relevancy. How do you hop on key conversations? A lot of the ways that we've seen work the best are obviously using creators, allowing them to flex their creativity. So my next question for you, Joe, is how can we better work with creators and leverage trends?
Okay, so I've been in the industry, I'm like a geriatric in this industry. I met Max like 5 years ago, and I've been doing this since 2010. So I started out in blog culture, like nightclub blogging, and it kind of evolved from Facebook groups. But in that entire time, and I would say it still hasn't changed that much, the over-control that brand wants is what was killing it then, and it's killing it now. So that piece hasn't evolved that much, and it still kind of shocks me. I still hear about creators being sent scripts rather than briefs, which astounds me. And I still see creators talking about the length of time it takes for a trend to come out, that they're still trying to push it, and the creator is like, no, we can't do that now. That is mortifying. We have to step away from that now. But they're like, but hey, we signed it off a month ago. You're like, no, stop. So I think that is still an issue. The trust that brands have with creators is still an issue, and I would say it needs to come closer. And in terms of the respect that brands give to creators also need to understand brands better and understand some of those relationships and issues that they have to deal with the brand side of things. So I would say coming together closer is something I'd like to see. The best brands that do it are the brands that have ongoing relationships with creators. They don't treat them on a quarterly campaign basis. They potentially onboard them as ambassadors for a whole year, and that gives you so much more organic content. You still have to disclose it, of course, but you're allowed to just flex it a little bit. You don't have to keep sticking to a regimented schedule. So advice to anybody that wants to work with creators, think about them in the long term, using really smart tools to see who's on the rise, so that you might have a fear that you're committing to a creator that may not be relevant in a year, which is something you could consider. But if you know that creator is on the rise, you know that you'll be with them for the journey. There are creators that started working out with beauty brands when they were relatively unknown, and they've gone on that journey with them. And that brand identity that stays with a creator on the rise can last for a really long time. So I would say trust, length of time, and understanding from both sides of the creative process.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Those are all the key questions for our guest today. I guess as a bit of a closing statement, if there's anything that I would say to take away from this, I think first of all, it sounds like relevancy is the key metric you want to look at whenever you're looking at how can we communicate better with our audience as a brand. Then, if you want to drive relevance, start looking at trends. How can you actually integrate your brand into conversations? And one of the best ways of doing that is by leveraging creators, building a community around that so that you can actually build content that your audience wants to see. Do so by building longer-term relationships with those creators, having those open briefs, allowing for the creative freedom to come out.
I can share one story that happened around the end of last year that really jumped into my Instagram feed, my TikTok, and my LinkedIn. You don't often get that in like 3 different ways. I was like, what is going on here? A brand that I wasn't even aware of called Topicals, and I was like, what is this brand? I don't even know what this is. It was owned by a Nigerian-American woman, and the only reason I looked her up was that I saw her everywhere in December. And there's something called Dirty December. It happens in Ghana and it happens in Nigeria. And I noticed that all the creators I work with from the African diaspora were going to this event over in Ghana. And they were in Accra. And they must have taken about 50 creators there. And everyone was talking about it. So this brand that was started by a black Nigerian woman from America had realised that in the UK, so much of the African diaspora go over to Accra and Lagos, and she capitalised on that. And she just took over all of our feeds, and everybody was talking about it. On Instagram, everyone wanted to go there. On TikTok, everyone loved the content. And on LinkedIn, everyone was like, who is this brand? So I would say that was something that jumped into my attention, and I Googled everything. I was like, what is going on here? This is amazing. And then from there on in, I've seen what they've done previous to that. And she's such a well-known businesswoman. And I think that particular community-driven campaign, understanding the cultural dynamic, understanding the way that people in the UK attend those different festivals in Africa, was such a smart creator move, for sure.
Just to add to that, and thoughts on saying relevancy is the key metric. Relevancy is just a metric that picks up on this. Community is the essence of it. So why is influencer marketing so effective? It's because it drives relevancy, but the heart of influencer is community. And what is that? It's being at the forefront of culture. It's being the voice of their audience. It's all of these things, and I think we need to think of when you think of the future marketing from that lens, how can we be more in touch with community? So that would be being on top of trends, but it'd also be, if you build relationships with those creators, you can jump on these trends way more reactive, not having a sign-off from a month ago, not having, you might even have relationships with 50 creators and jump on that in that moment. So I think thinking from more the lens of being community-driven will enable trends, will enable relevancy. I think the heart of all of that is community.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to shout, or we'll see you on the side after this. Thank you very much.